Welcome to another video. In this video, we are going to create a Docker image locally from a Dockerfile and push that image to the Docker Hub. Once that is done, we will pull that image from the EC2 server in AWS and we'll be running a container there. Okay, now let's dive into the video. Okay, now we are going to create an image from a Dockerfile, and then we are using that image and then we create a container. Then we can move the image to the Docker Hub so that we can pull that image from the Docker Hub and use it anywhere. So I have two files here in the Node app folder. One is app.js. So this is a hello world application, and we have a Docker file here. So Docker files are used to create images using certain instructions. So here we are using a Node 14 image. These are keywords from work dir, copy, expose, cmd are the keywords of a Docker file, and these are the commands that we are running. So we are using Node version 14, and this means that we are, once the container is created, we are changing the working directory to this location, and copy space dot means we are copying everything in this folder. That is the, so in this, when we run the Docker file, we have app.js here. So the app.js will be copied to the working directory of the container, and we are exposing the port 3000 on the container, and this is a command that we are running. So this command does is it runs node space app.js. So we can try that. First I'm going to build the image, docker build -t node app. Then I need to mention the Docker file. So if you have the Docker file in this location, you can just say a dot. So we have our Docker image created. We can check that now. Docker image ls. So this is our Docker image that we just created. For some reason it says it created 30 minutes ago. I'm not sure why. We can verify that in the Docker desktop application as well. So we have that Docker app created now. Now we can run this Docker app. So to run that, docker run -d. We can mention the port. Here I'm using the port 3000 and then 3000. So this means that the first 3000 is the port of this desktop, and the second 3000 is port of the container. And then we can mention the image. So we have node app image. So it will create a container. Now we can verify if that created a container. ls. To check container, we can use two commands. It's either docker container ls or docker ps, which I have mentioned in other videos. So we have now that running. So we can check the same from the Docker desktop application. So we have that. Now I can copy this URL. So when I clicked on that, this window opened up. So we have now that image running as a container. So now we are going to push the image to the Docker Hub. So you will need to create an account in the Docker Hub. You can go to hub.docker.com and create an account. So I have already logged into that account. To log into the Docker Hub using terminal, you can use the command docker login. It will ask for your username and password, so I will go ahead and do that. Okay, now I have logged into the Docker desktop application using my credentials, so I think I can now type in docker login and just login. Okay, now the login succeeded because it used the credentials that I used in the Docker desktop application to login here. So we have the images here, Docker image ls. So we are going to push this image to my Docker Hub. So we need to tag it first. Docker tag node app, then my username in Docker Hub, and I need to mention the image name here. And then I think we can just push it like this. Push, docker push username, then my image name. It should be node. This is our image, node app. Okay, so it is showing some error. Let's see what that is. So what I have done here is I came to Docker Hub and I created a new repository. So this is the repository that I just created, node app. Let's try again. Also, if we can see that my username I was using was wrong. So let's try again. The username you are using on the command line should match the username on the Docker Hub. So I was using RSIMBHU619, so there was no 619 here, so I just edited that. Now we can try again. It looks like the image is being pushed, so it was really a good troubleshooting step as well. So always make sure that you are using the right username, then only you can push the image to the Docker Hub. So we can also try to push to a repository that is not in the Docker Hub. We can try that once the command is successfully completed, and we need to verify it as well. Okay, now it is completed, so we can go to the Docker Hub and see if the image is there. So let's go to the Docker Hub. So this is the repository which we have created. If you can see that you have the image here. So the tag latest means that we can actually mention the versions of the Docker image here. If you are using the versions, then we can actually mention the version of the images. So we haven't mentioned anything, so that's why it automatically added a tag latest. So like that we can use different versions of Docker images and pull them to the Docker Hub, and we can push them to the Docker Hub, and then we can pull them by mentioning the versions that we need to deploy the container from. So that's how we create a image from the Docker file, and then that's how we push that to the Docker Hub. Earlier we created a repository from UI, and then we used that repository to push the Docker image. So we can try to create a new repository while we are pushing the image to the Docker Hub. So what I did earlier was I went here and I clicked this button and then created the repository. So we can try to do that automatically from the command line. Let's try that. So for that we need to build a new image, username, then node app, auto repo, and then I'm using the Docker file in this folder. Okay, so that is done. Now we can try to push that. Username and the repo name, username, and this will be our repository name. We can try that. Okay, looks like that is done. We can verify that in the UI. Okay, so now we have created a repository automatically while we are pushing the image to the Docker Hub. So we have our image here and we have our new repo here. Okay, so now we have run the container locally, so we can try to pull the same image on a remote server and we can try to run it there. So here I am going to use my EC2 server. So I am going to log into that EC2 server. So now we are inside the AWS EC2 server and I'm trying to run the same Docker container there. So we have to pull this image there. So to pull the command, it is sudo docker pull. Then we have to paste the command and give a tag name. So we can remove the tag name. So by default this will pull the latest container in the repository. So I have already pulled that in the server, so that's why it says it already exists. So we can verify that sudo docker image ls. So here we have the Docker image pulled from the Docker Hub, so we can use this and we can try to run the container. So here I am going to use the port 2000 and the port we have mentioned in the Docker file is 3000, so we have to mention that here. And then we have to mention from which image we want to create the container. So whenever you are trying to pull something from your repository, you always need to mention the username, then / the repository name. Here this is my username and this is the container name, sorry, the repository name. So we can run that. So it's running now, so we can verify it. Okay, so we have now the container running and it is using the port 2000 and it is forwarding to the port 3000 in the container. So we can try to access this on the web browser. So coming to my EC2 server in AWS, so this is the URL or the domain prefix, so I can copy this and then we can open a new tab and I'm pasting the URL, and then we are giving the port 2000 here. So you can see here that we can now see the web page. That means the container is running and we can access the page without any issues. So now we know that we can create or build a Docker image anywhere, and we can run it anywhere like we did in the AWS server. So we created a image locally, we ran the container there, and then we pushed that image to the Docker hub. Then from the Docker hub we pulled that image to our AWS server and ran it there without any issues. So by doing this, there are no dependency issues. So that is one of the greatest advantages of Docker. If we create a Docker image and push it in the registry, we can pull it and use it anywhere or on any server or any workstation as well. So I hope this example was very informative for you. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.